Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of his ship, the Terra's Edge. The metal floor made soft clicking sounds under his boots. Outside the big windows, space looked the same as always, black and full of tiny white stars that seemed so far away they might as well be painted dots. Jake had been captain of this exploration ship for 3 years now. His job was simple: fly around space, look for new planets, and write reports about what he found. It was not the most exciting job in the human space fleet, but someone had to do it. Today felt like every other day in the past 6 months. Boring. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of machines. His crew worked at their stations, checking screens and pushing buttons. Most of them looked as bored as Jake felt. They had been traveling through empty space for weeks. Without seeing anything interesting, Lisa Parker sat at the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. Most days, she listened to radio signals from human colonies or talked to other ships. Today, she was doing the same thing she always did, listening to the emptiness of space. Then something changed. Lisa sat up straight in her chair. Her eyes went wide and she pressed her headphones closer to her ears. She started typing fast on her keyboard, her face showing confusion and excitement at the same time. "Captain," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet bridge. "I'm getting something strange here." Jake turned around and walked over to her station. The other crew members looked up from their work. Ryan Davis, the chief engineer, pushed his glasses up his nose and leaned forward. Amanda Clark, the first officer, stood up from her chair. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked. Lisa's fingers kept moving over her controls. Numbers and wave patterns appeared on her screen. "It's a transmission, sir, but it's not coming from any human source. The signal pattern is completely different from anything in our databases." Jake felt his heart beat a little faster. In all his years in space, he had never encountered anything that was not made by humans. Sure, everyone hoped they would find other intelligent life someday, but it had never actually happened. "Are you sure it's not just interference?" Amanda asked. Walking over to look at Lisa's screen, "Sometimes solar radiation can create patterns that look like signals." Lisa shook her head. "No, ma'am. This is definitely artificial. And there's something else." She adjusted some settings on her panel. "It's repeating. The same pattern over and over again, like someone is trying to send a message." Ryan Davis got up from his engineering station and came over to listen. He was a big man with thick hands that were always dirty from working on machines. But he was also smart about technology, and Jake trusted his opinion. "Can you clean up the signal?" Ryan asked. "Maybe we can figure out what it says." Lisa worked for several minutes, adjusting frequencies and filtering out background noise. Slowly, the signal became clearer. When she finally played it through the bridge speakers, everyone went silent. The sound that came out was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was clearly a voice, but not a human voice. The tone went up and down in ways that human voices could not. There were clicking sounds and whistles mixed in with what sounded like words, even though no one could understand the language. There was something in that voice that made everyone feel uncomfortable. It sounded scared. It sounded desperate. "My God," Amanda whispered. "It's a distress call." Jake felt a chill run down his back. He had heard many human distress calls during his career, and they all had the same feeling to them. Fear, urgency, a cry for help from someone who was running out of time. This alien transmission had all of those same qualities, even though the words were completely foreign. "Can you figure out where it's coming from?" Jake asked. Ryan was already working on that problem. He moved to the navigation station and started running calculations. The ship's computer worked to triangulate the signal's origin point. A few minutes, he had an answer. "It's coming from the Kepler 442 system," Ryan said, pointing to a star chart on the main screen. "About 12 light-years from our current position." Jake studied the chart. He knew that system well. According to all their surveys and probe missions, Kepler 442 was supposed to be empty. Oh, no planets with life, no signs of civilization, nothing. But rocks and gas floating around a medium-sized star. "It can't be right," Amanda said. "We've surveyed that system twice. There's nothing there except a few dead planets. Well, apparently we were wrong, Jake replied. He looked at the star chart again, thinking hard about what this meant.
How long would it take us to get there?
Ryan did some quick math. At maximum speed, about 3 days, sir. Jake was quiet for a long moment.
Oh, yes.
He knew what the regulations said. The Terra's Edge was an exploration vessel, not a rescue ship. Their current orders were to survey the outer colony worlds and report back to Earth Command. They were not supposed to go chasing after unknown signals in unexplored systems. But Jake had been in space long enough to know the most important rule of all. When someone sends a distress call, you respond. It did not matter if they were human or alien or something else entirely. If someone was in trouble and asking for help, decent people tried to help them. Sir, Amanda said carefully, our orders were specific. We're supposed to complete the Colonial Survey mission. Command didn't authorize any first contact situations. Jake knew she was right. Amanda was a good first officer, and it was her job to make sure he followed regulations. But sometimes regulations had to take second place to doing what was right. Lisa, are you still receiving the signal? He asked. Yes, sir. It's getting weaker, but it's still there. Still repeating the same pattern. Jake made his decision. Ryan, change course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed. Amanda looked surprised. Sir, are you sure about this? If Command finds out we abandoned our mission to chase alien signals, they can court-martial me later, Jake said firmly. But I'm not going to ignore a distress call, no matter who sent it. If there are living beings out there who need help, then we help them. That's what humans do. Ryan smiled and started entering. New coordinates into the navigation computer. Course laid in, Captain. We'll be there in 72 hours. As the Terra's Edge changed direction and began accelerating toward the Kepler system, Jake stood looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in a system they had thought was empty, someone was calling for help. Someone who was not human, but who was scared and desperate and hoping that someone would hear their cry. Jake did not know what they would find when they got there. He did not know if they would be able to help or if they would even be able to communicate properly. But he knew they had to try. It was the right thing to do. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for whatever they might encounter. Lisa continued monitoring the alien transmission, trying to learn more about the language and the beings who were sending it. Ryan ran diagnostics on all the ship's systems, making sure they would be ready for anything. Amanda pulled up every piece of information they had about the Kepler system, looking for clues about what might be waiting for them there. None of them realized that they were about to make the first contact between humanity and an alien civilization. None of them knew that this simple decision to respond to a distress call would change everything. Not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. The Terra's Edge flew through space toward an unknown fate, carrying the hopes and fears of its crew into the darkness between the stars. 3 days later, the Terra's Edge arrived at the Kepler 442 system. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The stars stopped looking like streaks of light and became points again. In front of them, the Kepler sun burned yellow and bright. Sensors are picking up something big, reported Ryan Davis from his station. His voice was tight with excitement and worry. It's near the third planet's moon. The main screen showed what their sensors had found. Floating in space near a small rocky moon was a ship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was huge, maybe twice the size of the Terra's Edge, but it looked completely different from any human vessel. Where human ships were built with straight lines and sharp angles, this alien ship had curves. It looked almost alive, like some giant sea creature that had learned to swim through space instead of water. Its hull was a dark blue-green color that seemed to change as Jake watched it. Parts of the ship glowed with soft, pale lights. But something was very wrong with the beautiful alien vessel. It was not moving. It floated dead in space, and some of its lights were flickering weakly. Life signs. Jake asked Dr. Kate Williams, the ship's medical officer, was running scans from her station. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent 20 years patching up hurt people in space. Her instruments were designed for human biology, but they could detect basic life signs in any living creature. I'm reading approximately 300 beings aboard that ship, she reported. But the signals are very weak. Whatever they are, they're in bad shape. Lisa Parker had been working day and night to understand the alien language. She had recordings of dozens of distress calls now, and her computer had been trying to find patterns in the sounds. Coffee cups and food containers covered her work area. She looked tired but excited. "Captain, I think I've got something," she said. "The computer has identified some basic word patterns. It's not perfect, but I might be able to establish simple communication." Jake nodded. "Try to contact them." Lisa sent a simple radio signal toward the alien ship. It was just basic mathematical concepts at first, the kind of thing that any intelligent species should be able to understand. 1 + 1 = 2. The value of pi. Simple patterns that showed the humans were intelligent and peaceful. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the alien ship responded with its own mathematical signals. After a few exchanges, Lisa tried something more complex. She sent simple pictures, a drawing of the Terra's edge, a human figure, basic symbols for friendship and help. The aliens responded with their own pictures. Jake and his crew gathered around Lisa's station to look at the images appearing on her screen. The first picture showed the alien ship. The second showed creatures that looked somewhat like humans, but were taller and thinner, with longer arms and legs. Their skin appeared to be light blue, and they had large, dark eyes. The third picture made everyone go quiet. It showed the alien ship being chased by other ships that looked much more threatening with sharp edges and weapon ports. The fourth picture showed the alien ship damaged and running away. "They're refugees," Amanda said softly. "Someone was chasing them, and they got hurt trying to escape." More pictures came through. The aliens showed their ship systems failing. They showed their people getting sick. They showed radiation symbols and warning signs. It was clear that their ship was dying, and so were they. Then came something that surprised everyone. Aliens sent a picture of the Terra's edge with a big X over it, followed by images of the threatening ships. They were warning the humans to leave. Even though they desperately needed help, they were trying to protect the people who had answered their distress call. Lisa worked quickly to send a response. She transmitted pictures showing the Terra's edge staying to help, images of humans, and aliens working together, symbols for medical aid and rescue. The reply came back immediately. But this time, it included sounds as well as pictures. Lisa had programmed her computer to try to translate the alien language, and text appeared. On her screen as the message played, "People of the small ship," the computer's translation read, "We are grateful that someone heard our call for help. We are the Zephyrians of the world Zephyr Prime. Our ship is dying, and we are dying with it. But you must leave this place. Our enemies are powerful and cruel. We do not want to bring destruction to another peaceful people." Jake stepped forward, so Lisa could send his reply. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Terra's Edge. We received your distress call, and we're here to help. We won't abandon you." The response came back quickly. "Captain Morrison, your kindness honors your species, but you do not understand the danger. The Hegemony will come looking for us. They are warriors who conquer worlds and enslave peoples. Your ship is small like ours. You cannot fight them." Jake looked around at his crew. Dr. Williams was already preparing her medical bay for alien patients she had never treated before. Ryan was checking the ship's systems to make sure they could handle extra passengers. Lisa continued working on improving the translation system. None of them looked like they wanted to run away. "You understand the risks," Jake transmitted back. "And we're not leaving you to die. Prepare your people for evacuation. We're coming aboard to help." There was a long pause before the aliens responded. "You would risk your lives for strangers? Your beings you have never seen before?" Jake smiled as Lisa typed his answer. "Psst. What friends do, and you're not strangers anymore." The next few hours were busy and tense. Jake sent over his best people in small shuttlecraft to help with the evacuation. Ryan went to see if he could fix any of the alien ship's systems. Dr. Williams went to help treat the sick and injured aliens. Security Chief Danny Rodriguez went along to make sure everyone stayed safe. When Ryan first stepped aboard the alien ship, he was amazed by what he saw. Everything was curved and smooth, more grown than built. The walls seemed to be made from some kind of living material that glowed softly, with its own light, but many of the lights were dim or flickering, and some areas were completely dark. Their technology is incredible, Ryan reported over his radio. But whatever hit them damaged their power systems badly. I think I can jury-rig some temporary repairs, but this ship isn't going anywhere fast. Dr. Williams had her own challenges. The Zephyrians were indeed tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They looked fragile compared to humans, and many of them were very sick from radiation poisoning. Their biology was different. Enough that she had to be very careful with any treatment she tried. But the aliens were cooperative and grateful. Their medical officers worked alongside her, sharing information about their physiology and helping her understand how to help them. Despite the language barrier and the species difference, the universal language of healing allowed them to work. Together, they're not just refugees, Dr. Williams told Jake over the radio. They're families. There are children here, Captain. Scared kids who don't understand why they had to leave their home. That decided it for Jake. Whatever these hegemony forces were, whatever threat they posed, he could not abandon families with children. He would get these people to safety, no matter what it cost, as the evacuation continued. The Zephyrian commander, a tall, dignified being named Keeper Talon, was brought aboard the Terra's Edge. He moved slowly. Clearly injured, but he insisted. On meeting with Jake personally, Morrison Talon said through the translation system, "You and your people show great courage. But I fear you do not fully understand what you have chosen to face. The hegemony does not show mercy to those who oppose them." Jake looked at the alien commander. Despite their different species, he could see the same kind of leadership and concern for others that he hoped he showed himself. "Keeper Tolan," Jake replied, "maybe we don't fully understand the danger. But we understand what's right. No one should have to face evil alone." As if summoned by their conversation, alarms suddenly started blaring throughout the Terra's Edge. Lisa's voice came over the ship's communication system, tight with tension. "Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have multiple contacts dropping. Out of hyperspace. Large ships, heavily armed." The hegemony had arrived. Jake ran onto the bridge just as 5 massive ships appeared on the main screen. They were nothing like the graceful Zephyrian vessel. These ships looked like they were built for one purpose only: war. Their hulls were dark gray metal covered with weapon ports and armor plating. Each ship was 3 times bigger than the Terra's Edge. "My God," Amanda whispered from her station. "Those things are enormous." Sam Hughes, the tactical officer, was working frantically at his controls. Numbers and threat assessments scrolled across his screen. His face was pale as he read the results. "Captain, I'm counting over 200 weapon systems on each ship. Energy cannons, missile launchers, and some kind of plasma weapons I've never seen before. We're completely outgunned." Jake looked at the screen showing the 5 enemy warships arranging themselves in attack formation around his small exploration vessel. Any sane person would have been terrified. Jake was scared too, but he was also angry. These bullies had come here to hurt innocent people, and that made his blood boil. "Open a communication channel," he ordered Lisa. The screen flickered and changed to show the bridge of the lead enemy ship. The creature that appeared was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. It was huge and covered in thick, scaly skin that looked like armor. Its eyes were small and red, and its mouth was full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Primitive species," the creature snarled, "you have interfered with hegemony justice. I am Admiral Vorthok of the 1st Battle Fleet. Surrender the criminals you harbor, or your pathetic vessel will be destroyed." Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. He could hear the quiet sounds of weapon systems coming online. Even though everyone knew their small ship could not possibly fight 5 massive warships. "This is Captain Morrison of the Terran vessel Terra's Edge," Jake said in a calm, steady voice. "We are conducting a humanitarian rescue operation. The beings aboard our ship have requested sanctuary, which we are legally and morally bound to provide under interstellar law. Admiral Vorthak's laugh was a horrible sound, like rocks grinding together. His red eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Interstellar law?" he sneered. "There's only hegemony law, little creature. Your ship is weak. Your weapons are toys. We'll surrender the fugitives, or you will die with them. Choose quickly. My patience runs short." Jake felt something cold and hard settle in his stomach. He had faced dangerous situations before, but never anything like this. These creatures were not just enemy soldiers, they were bullies who enjoyed hurting others. They thought humans were weak and scared, just like all the other species they had probably conquered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Mr. Davis," Jake said quietly, not taking his eyes off the alien admiral, "what's our weapon status?" Ryan's voice came back steady and professional. "Plasma cannons are online and ready, sir. Magnetic railgun is charged. Nuclear torpedoes are armed and loaded. All defensive systems are operational." Admiral Vorthak heard this exchange and laughed. Even harder. Nuclear weapons. How primitive. Our shields will absorb such attacks like raindrops. You cannot harm ships of the hegemony with such crude tools. What the alien did not understand was that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had learned to use every advantage, no matter how small. More importantly, they had learned never to give up, even when the odds seemed impossible. Keeper Tolan appeared on the bridge, supported by two of his people. Tall Zephyrian looked weak and tired, but his large dark eyes were filled with amazement as he watched the humans prepare for battle. Captain Morrison Tolan said through the translator, "You cannot fight them. One hegemony ship could destroy a dozen vessels like yours. Please, save your people. Leave us and escape while you can." Jake turned to look at the alien leader. "Keeper, Tolan, how many children are on your ship?" 43 younglings, but I do not see what, then we fight," Jake interrupted. "No one threatens children while humans are around to stop them." Admiral Vorthak had been listening to this conversation, and his expression changed from amusement to confusion. "You would die for creatures not even of your own species. This makes no sense. Retreat now, and the hegemony will forget this insult."
Ow. Jake
looked directly into the alien's red eyes. "Admiral, let me explain something about humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, diseases, and predators that could tear us apart with their claws. We survived all of that not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were too stubborn to quit and too loyal to abandon our friends." The human captain paused, and his voice became hard as steel. "You made two mistakes today. Admiral, first you threatened people we've promised to protect. Second, you assumed we would be as cowardly as you are." Admiral Vorthak's face twisted with rage. "Destroy them," he roared to his fleet. The battle began immediately. Energy beams lanced out from the hegemony ships, lighting up space with deadly colors. But Jake had not wasted the time spent talking. Tony Martinez, the ship's pilot, had been quietly positioning the Terra's edge near the gas giant's radiation belt. "Right now, Tony," Jake ordered. The Terra's edge suddenly accelerated at maximum speed, diving toward the gas giant. The hegemony ships, built for overwhelming firepower rather than speed and maneuverability, struggled to follow the much smaller human vessel. "They're using the radiation field as cover," Sam Hughes reported, amazement in his voice. "The interference is making it hard for them to lock onto us with their weapons." But Jake was not just running away as the Terra's edge whipped around. The gas giant's magnetic field, Ryan Davis fired the ship's magnetic railgun. The projectile, accelerated by the planet's own magnetic field, struck one of the hegemony ships with incredible force. The aliens had been right that their shields could stop nuclear weapons and energy beams, but they had not expected a simple piece of metal moving at nearly the speed of light. The railgun slug punched through the alien ship's shields like they were made of paper and tore a hole in its hull. Impossible. Admiral Vorthak screamed as his formation broke apart in confusion. Dr. Williams was still on the bridge, treating injured Zephyrians. When an explosion threw her across the room, she hit the wall hard, blood running from a cut on her forehead, but she immediately got up and went back to work. Her patients needed her. Pain was not going to stop her from doing her job. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as the human crew continued fighting, even when injured. Communications officer Lisa Parker had been knocked unconscious by another explosion, but when she woke up 30 seconds later, she immediately went back to her station and continued coordinating with the engine room. "How do they keep functioning?" whispered a Zephyrian healer to Keeper Tolan. "The stress chemicals alone should have shut down their systems."
Alan
was beginning to understand what they were seeing. "They're not like us," he said quietly. "Their world made them different, stronger. They do not break under pressure, they become more dangerous." Tony Martinez pulled the Terra's Edge through a series of maneuvers that pushed both the ship and crew to their physical limits. He used the gas giants' moons as shields, flying so close to their surfaces that rocks scraped against the ship's hull. The Hegemony vessels, much larger and less agile, could not follow. When one of the alien ships tried to cut them off, Ryan Davis overloaded one of the ship's power cores and ejected it like a mine. The explosion crippled the Hegemony vessel and sent it spinning out of control, but the Terra's Edge was taking damage too. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Fires broke out in several sections. The ship's artificial gravity failed in some areas, leaving crew members floating as they tried to work. Danny Rodriguez led damage control teams through sections of the ship that were barely holding together. When a bulkhead collapsed and trapped 2 engineers, he lifted the heavy metal barrier by himself while they crawled to safety. Admiral Vorthok watched his superior fleet being outfought by a single small ship. And for the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. These humans were not like the peaceful species the Hegemony usually conquered. They fought like cornered predators, becoming more dangerous as the battle went on instead of weaker. Even when hurt, they kept fighting. Even when their ship was damaged, they found new ways to attack. "What kind of creatures are these?" Vorthok demanded of his officers. None of them had an answer. They had never encountered anything like humans before, a species that refused to surrender, no matter how hopeless the situation became. The battle continued for what felt like hours. The Terra's Edge darted between the larger Hegemony ships like a small fish swimming around sharks. But Jake knew they could not keep this up forever. His ship was taking too much damage, and his crew was getting tired. "Then everything changed, Captain," Lisa called out from her communications station. "I'm picking up new signals. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace." Jake's heart sank. More Hegemony reinforcements would end the fight quickly. But when the new ships appeared on the main screen, he could hardly believe what he was seeing. The first ship was the Deep Horizon, a science vessel like his own. Its captain, Alex Murphy, had been Jake's roommate at the Space Academy 20 years ago. The second was the Steady Progress, a massive cargo hauler commanded by Captain Maria Santos. The third was the Iron Will, a mining ship under Captain Chris Johnson. "Jake, you old dog," came Alex's voice over the radio. "Looks like you could use some help." "How did you know we were here?" Jake asked, relief flooding through him. "Distress beacon has been broadcasting for the last hour," replied Maria Santos. "Every human ship within 10 light years heard it. We came as fast as we could." Admiral Vorthok watched 3 more human vessels join the battle and felt his confidence waver. His fleet had been struggling against just one small ship. There were 4 of them, and they were all fighting with the same impossible determination. The cargo ship's Steady Progress was huge, but not built for fighting. It had no real weapons, just industrial equipment for moving supplies between colonies. But Captain Santos used her ship's massive engines to ram one of the damaged Hegemony vessels. The impact crushed the alien ship's hull and sent it tumbling away, dead in space. The mining ship Iron Will was even more dangerous than it looked. Its industrial lasers designed for cutting through asteroids proved devastating against Hegemony armor. Captain Johnson targeted the enemy ship's weapon systems, methodically destroying their ability to fight back. The science vessel Deep Horizon used its powerful sensors to coordinate the attack. Captain Murphy analyzed the enemy ship's weaknesses and shared targeting data with the other human vessels. What had started as a desperate fight for survival became a coordinated attack by a pack of predators. Jake watched his fellow captains work together without any formal planning or coordination. They had never fought as a unit before, but they moved like they had been doing it for years. It was something humans had learned during millions of years of hunting together on Earth. The ability to work as a team without needing detailed instructions. The Zephyrians on the Terra's edge watched in amazement. Keeper Tolan stood on the bridge, ignoring his own injuries as he observed the human crew in action. "They are magnificent," he whispered to his aide. "Look how they coordinate. Each one knows what the others will do before they do it." Dr. Williams was still treating wounded aliens while explosions rocked the ship around her. A piece of metal from a damaged wall cut her arm, but she just wrapped a bandage around it and kept working. When a Zephyrian child was brought to her, crying and scared, she took time to comfort the youngster, even though the battle was still raging outside. The alien healers working with her could not understand how she stayed so calm. Their own species would have been paralyzed with fear by now, unable to function under such stress. But humans, they were beginning to realize, actually worked better under pressure. Ryan Davis had turned the Terra's Edge into a weapon. Every system on the ship was either fighting or supporting the fight. He had jury-rigged the waste recycling system to create makeshift explosive charges. The food processors were being used to manufacture chemical compounds for smokescreens. Even the ship's coffee makers had been converted to produce acid for melting through enemy hull plating. "How is this possible?" Admiral Vorthok demanded, as he watched his powerful fleet being systematically destroyed by cargo haulers and mining ships. "They're not warriors. Their vessels are not military." His tactical officer, a smaller version of Vorthok himself, studied the sensor readings with growing fear. "Admiral, I think we have made a serious error. These creatures fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They use everything as a weapon. They never retreat, even when mortally wounded." On the Terra's Edge, Tony Martinez was performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. He flew the ship through debris fields and radiation zones that would have killed most other species. At one point, he actually landed the ship on one of the gas giant's moons and used the rocky surface to hide from enemy sensors, while Ryan made emergency repairs. The Hegemony ships, built for space combat, could not follow them onto the moon's surface. While they waited in orbit, the humans worked frantically to fix their damaged systems and reload their weapons. Danny Rodriguez and his security team went outside, the ship in spacesuits, to make repairs that could not be done from inside. They worked on the hull while enemy fire exploded around them, welding patches over holes and replacing damaged sensors. Any normal species would have been too terrified to function, but the humans treated it like just another dangerous job that needed to be done. "This is insanity," muttered a Zephyrian engineer as he watched the humans working in the vacuum of space while a battle raged overhead. "They are repairing their ship while under attack. Do they feel no fear?" Keeper Tolan was beginning to understand. "They feel fear," he said quietly. "They do not let it control them. Fear makes them more careful, more focused. For us, fear paralyzes. For them, it sharpens their minds." The battle reached its climax when Captain Johnson, of the Iron Will, made a desperate decision. His mining ship had taken heavy damage and could not continue fighting much longer. But he noticed that one of the Hegemony ships had moved close to the gas giant's upper atmosphere. "All ships, this is Johnson," he broadcast. "I'm going to try something crazy. Be ready to take advantage of whatever happens next." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the Iron Will dove straight down toward the gas giant's surface. The Hegemony ship followed, trying to finish off what they thought was a retreating enemy. Johnson waited until the last possible moment, then fired his ship's engines at maximum power while simultaneously venting all of his ship's atmosphere. The sudden acceleration pulled him away from the planet. But the cloud of gases he left behind mixed with the gas giant's atmosphere and created a massive explosion. The Hegemony ship was caught in the blast and destroyed instantly. The Iron Will barely escaped, its hull glowing red-hot from the heat. But Captain Johnson and his crew were alive. Admiral Vorthok realized that his fleet was losing. 3 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. His own flagship was heavily damaged. The humans had turned what should have been an easy victory into a devastating defeat. But what frightened him most was not the loss of ships or crew. It was the realization that he had encountered something completely new and terrifying, a species that simply refused to accept defeat. Every other race the Hegemony had conquered followed predictable patterns. When outgunned, they surrendered. When injured, they became less effective. When faced with certain death, they broke and ran. But humans did the opposite. The more desperate their situation became, the more creative and dangerous they were. They used their own ship's explosion. As a weapon, they fought hand-to-hand in the vacuum of space. They turned mining equipment and cargo haulers into instruments of war. Admiral, his tactical officer, said urgently, "We should retreat. These creatures are not like anything in our databases. They are Deathworlders." Vorthok had heard the term before, but he had always thought it was just a myth. The idea that some species came from worlds so hostile that they evolved into perfect warriors. It seemed like a story told to frighten children. Now he was facing the reality of what Deathworlders could do, and he finally understood why every other species in the galaxy feared them. The humans were not just winning the battle. They were teaching the Hegemony a lesson that would echo throughout their empire. There were some fights that bullies could not win, some people who would never bow down to tyranny. The age of human dominance in space had begun, not through conquest, but through the simple act of protecting the innocent and refusing to abandon those in need. Admiral Vorthok stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Of his 5 mighty warships, 2 were completely destroyed. One was drifting powerless with its crew dead or dying. Another was badly damaged and limping away from the battle. His flagship remained fully operational, and even it had taken serious damage from the human attacks. The 4 human ships continued to circle like predators, their weapons still charged and ready. They moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. For vessels that had never worked together before, it was as if they could read each other's minds. "Admiral," his communications officer said nervously, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding our surrender." Vorthok's red eyes blazed with fury. No one had ever demanded that the Hegemony surrender. They were the conquerors, the masters of this part of the galaxy. Lesser species bowed before them or were destroyed. "Never," he snarled. "The Hegemony does not surrender to primitives." But even as he said the words, Vorthok knew the battle was lost. His remaining ships could not defeat these strange humans who fought like demons and refused to die when they should. Every tactical doctrine he had learned said that retreat was the only logical option. On the Terra's edge, Jake Morrison stood on his damaged bridge and watched the alien admiral struggle with his decision. The human captain's uniform was torn and bloody. His ship was held together with emergency repairs and sheer determination. But he had saved the Zephyrians, and that was all that mattered. "Captain Murphy," Jake said into his radio. "What's the status on your ship?" Alex Murphy's voice crackled back through static. "We've got hull breaches on 3 decks, and our main engine is running at 60% power. Fit, if that alien wants another round." Captain Santos checked in next. "The steady progress took some hits, but we're solid. My cargo bay is full of Zephyrian refugees now. These people have been through hell, Jake." Captain Johnson's mining ship had taken the worst damage of all. "Iron Will is barely holding together," he reported. "But if that ugly admiral wants to dance some more, we'll give him one last waltz." Jake smiled despite his exhaustion. This was what made humans special, not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to quit when others needed their help. Every captain had risked their ship and crew for people they had never met before today. "Keeper." Talon limped over to Jake's command chair. The tall Zephyrian's blue skin was pale from injury and stress, but his large dark eyes were bright with gratitude and amazement. Captain Morrison Tolan said through the translation system, "What your people have done today will be remembered. For generations, you faced impossible odds to save strangers. This is not normal behavior for most species in the galaxy." Jake looked at the alien leader. "Keeper Talon, maybe it's not normal for most species, but it's normal for humans," he learned. "A long time ago, that the only way to survive is to take care of each other. On Admiral Vorthok's flagship, the bridge crew waited nervously for their commander's orders. They had seen their mighty fleet defeated by cargo ships and mining vessels. These humans had turned civilian equipment into weapons of war and used tactics that defied all military logic. "Admiral," the tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our position. These creatures are not like the other species we have conquered. They may be Deathworlders." Vorthok turned his massive head to glare at his subordinate. "Deathworlders are a myth. Stories told to frighten younglings." "With respect, sir," the officer continued, "myths do not destroy battle fleets. We have lost 4 ships to their 1 damaged vessel and 3 civilian craft. They fight when they should retreat, coordinate when they should panic, and grow stronger when they should weaken." The admiral looked back at his tactical display. The human ships had positioned themselves between his fleet and the Zephyrian refugees. Even now, when they could have escaped, they remained to guard the people they had rescued. "What do our databases say about their homeworld?" Vorthok asked grudgingly. His science officer worked quickly at his console. "The planet they call Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, sir. Extreme weather variations, active geology, dangerous fauna, frequent extinction events. According to our analysis, no intelligent life should have been able to evolve there. And yet here they are," Vorthok muttered. The science officer continued reading. "Their evolutionary history shows constant warfare with their environment and each other. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague outbreaks. Their species survived multiple extinction events that would have ended any other form of life." Vorthok was beginning to understand what they were facing. These humans had been forged by a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. They had evolved not just intelligence, but an unbreakable will to survive and protect their own kind. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "the humans are broadcasting again." Jake Morrison's voice filled the Hegemony bridge. "Admiral Vorthok, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will disable your remaining ships and take you prisoner. You have 30 seconds to decide." Vorthok felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: respect for an enemy. These humans had every right to destroy his fleet completely. They had proven they could do it. Instead, they were offering him a chance to retreat with honor. "Admiral," his tactical officer said urgently, "long-range sensors are detecting more human ships approaching, at least 6 vessels, including what appears to be a military cruiser." The word of the battle had spread, and more humans were coming to help. Vorthok realized that he was not just fighting for damaged ships anymore. He was fighting an entire species that would never stop coming to protect their friends. "Signaled the fleet," Vorthok said quietly. "We are withdrawing." "Sir," his communications officer asked in surprise. "We are withdrawing," Vorthok repeated more loudly. "These are not the prey we thought they were. They are apex predators, and we have wandered into their territory." As the remaining Hegemony ships began to retreat, Jake felt a mixture of relief and pride. They had done it. Against all odds, with damaged ships and exhausted crews, they had won. Dr. Williams appeared on the bridge, still treating wounded Zephyrians even though the battle was over. Her medical bay was full of alien refugees who would live because humans had answered their distress call. "How many casualties?" Jake asked. "Surprisingly few," Dr. Williams replied. "Some broken bones, radiation burns, cuts and bruises. Nothing that won't heal. The Zephyrians are tougher than they look." Keeper Tolan watched the Hegemony fleet disappear into hyperspace. "They will spread word of this battle throughout their empire," he said to Jake. "The galaxy will know that humans cannot be bullied or intimidated." Jake nodded. "Good, maybe that will prevent some future conflicts." Over the next few hours, the human ships worked together to transfer all the Zephyrian refugees to safety. The aliens would be taken to a neutral world where they could start new lives, far from Hegemony territory, as the rescue operation continued. Jake stood in his damaged ship's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Captain Murphy joined him, along with Santos and Johnson. "You realize what we've done here today?" Alex asked. "We've announced to the entire galaxy that humanity is a force to be reckoned with." Maria Santos nodded. word of this fight will spread. Every species out there will know that humans don't abandon their friends. Chris Johnson, his clothes still dirty from the emergency repairs on his mining ship, smiled tiredly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. The galaxy could use more people willing to help others. Jake thought about that as he watched Zephyrian. Families boarding human shuttles, their children clinging to parents who had thought they would never see safety again. These people would go home with stories of the strange humans who had risked everything to save strangers. You know what the real victory is here? Jake said finally.
Right.
It's not that we won the battle, it's that we showed the galaxy what humanity stands for. We don't conquer or enslave. We protect and rescue. In the weeks that followed, the story of the battle at Kepler 442 spread throughout known space. The Hegemony, once considered invincible, began to face rebellions on worlds they had conquered. Other species, inspired by the human example, started. Standing up to bullies and tyrants, the Zephyrians established a new colony world and named their capital city Morrison. In honor of the human captain who had saved them, they became humanity's first alien allies, and their advanced technology freely shared helped accelerate human expansion into the galaxy. But the most important change was in how other species viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as just another young race stumbling around in the dark. They were recognized as Deathworlders beings, so tough and determined that they would fight impossible odds to protect others. Admiral Vorthok, his career ruined by his defeat, spent his remaining years writing military studies about human tactics. His final report to the Hegemony High Command contained a warning that would echo through their empire for generations. Do not mistake human kindness for weakness. Do not assume that because they offer mercy, they are soft. They are the children of a world that tried to kill them for millions of years, and they survived by refusing to surrender.